So here's the dirty little secret that no one wants to talk about. The civil rights movement in America failed, and if Dr. Martin Luther King were taken from the 1960s and transported to today without having had any effect between the years of 1968 to 2013, if he were just an observer, again, having no effect whatsoever on the time that he would be transported between, he would say that the civil rights movement utterly and despicably failed. And I'm not just saying that to say that. If you look at the statistics, and I originally did this for a class discussion, but now I'm going to post it here because that the civil rights movement failed needs to be said. First of all, Dr. King was a Republican, and the way that black Republicans are treated today is an obvious failure indication. And in the election before that, about 90 to 92% of Democrats, if I recall correctly, the 2008 election voted for Obama. And if you're even a moderate Democrat, you get called, I'm not going to repeat the terms here. I linked to the Juan Williams video so you can see exactly what he was called. I remember the night that Juan Williams was in hosting for Bill O'Reilly, and he got called that racial epithet. And when I originally wrote this, I had said that I remember that 70% of African American children were born out of wedlock. That's the latest statistic that I had remembered. It's actually 72%. And I had heard that African Americans were 15% of the total population. Apparently it's changed to 13.1. I had heard like about 49 to 50% incarcerated. Well, it's actually 46%, so that's not much better than the original statistic I recall. And you can see like some of the things that I've confronted, certain hate groups, and I linked to other things, and even the way that certain Jewish groups are treated in Israel, it's like, okay, we have enough of the anti-Messianic activity going on and what have you. Just that, like, for example, Lenny Kravitz would never be able to make Aliyah because he's black, he's Messianic, and Benjamin Netanyahu and Likud already hates Messianic Jews. Let's be clear about that. And of course, if you're giving Falasha and Lemba Jews, but Falasha Jews in the case that we're talking about here, if you're giving Falasha Jews sterilizations that they don't want, you can imagine that Lenny Kravitz, unfortunately, if he ever made Aliyah, would have to agree not to have any more children, especially if he was going to raise them Messianic, because, hey, you're not even allowed to talk to children about the gospel in Israel. You're not allowed to, quote-unquote, proselytize the children or missionize the children or what have you. And, you have parties like the Koch Party, which were banned, but let's be fair, you still have remnants of the Koch Party, like Yad L'Achim, and you have these groups who counter to Yad L'Achim and groups like that. You have the Nation of Islam, which could technically be called a group of Mohammedism, but anyway, that's another discussion. And you have groups like the KKK that have reemerged. You have neo-Confederates, many of whom I unfortunately see on Facebook all the time, and they have the channels, with the Confederate flag, and it's like as Dick Morris once said, if your excuse is that you can fly the Confederate flag over to South Carolina Capitol for states' rights, then you can use the Nazi flag and make the excuse of, German pride. And so obviously, unfortunately, neo-Confederates have resurged, and neo-Nazis have clearly resurged. I see Nazi channels all the time, and I'm surprised that YouTube, frankly, does nothing about them. And so the statistics and just all kinds of material that you see nowadays clearly indicates that the civil rights movement failed. You can pick up, like I said, some of the things that I'm linking to. If you pick up the daily edition of Haaretz, or if you pick up the latest reports from the census, if you Google, like I did, to find what I was looking for, if you search on YouTube, if you actually recall things when you're there, if you've had your life threatened like I've had, then you'll see that the civil rights movement was an abject failure, and Martin Luther King, to say the least, would not be amused with what happened with the civil rights movement.